We are starting the third session of the Gita series, and today also there will be more of a general introduction rather than straight away taking up the text line by line. We have covered many topics which were important by way of introduction, but there is one topic which is very important, and it is based on Shri Aurobindo. It's a comparison of Shri Aurobindo's philosophy and the Gita. See, in this book, Shri Aurobindo has interpreted the Gita as per his understanding in the message of the Gita. But it doesn't mean that that interpretation contains all of Shri Aurobindo. Shri Aurobindo himself spills outside the teaching of the Gita, goes beyond it. And today we will discuss that to some extent. Lord Krishna says again and again in the Gita that I bring this world out of myself. संभवाम्यात्म माया, मैं अपनी जन्म करता हूँ, उसका पॉसिबल करता हूँ. पार्डन? सृजन सृष्टि. तो तो वो मैंने समझाया था कि in the Vedantic philosophy, creation is not something new out of a vacuum. It is not like a magician on a stage pulls out a rabbit from under a hat. The word for creation is Srishti. Srishti originally means, firstly, Srishti means that which is always moving. And the word Srishti and Sansar have the same dhatu Sri. Sri means constant flux. So this world, if you see, its most prominent feature is the fact that it is always changing. It is always moving. So, and that is why Srishti. But what he says is, hey, so in other words, according to the Vedanta, Srishti is Visarjan. We have the word Visarjan means release. Chhod dena. In other words, this is important. The Vedanta says that this world was already present in the Supreme as a potentiality. He selected it and released it. For instance, take a bud and a flower. You have a closed bud and a blossom flower. What is the difference? One is a potential, the other is an actual. It's a manifestation. But essentially, every feature in the blooming flower is present in the bud form. So what Srishti is that bud has released what was locked up inside it. It has let go. Now you are all familiar with that verse of the Upanishads, Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. He is the perfect. He is Purnamidam. This is perfect, that is perfect. From the perfect, if you take out the perfect remains. And if you add the perfect to the perfect, it will still be the perfect. In other words, before manifestation, the entity that created this world was perfect. Perfection means what? It means absence of any kind of deficiency. तुम्हें when something is perfect, इसका मतलब उसमें there is nothing to be, you can add to it or detract from it. It is perfect. In other words, it is not subject to any kind of improvement or regress by adding or subtracting. So the question arises, if that was the nature of the Supreme Being before he created this universe, then why did he create it? Without going into this question as to the nature of the universe that he has created, the question remains, why did he create it? And I am telling you, the Vedanta has answered this question by saying for his Leela, for his amusement. Well, that's a very simplistic explanation. A more mature would be for undergoing a certain kind of experience, which would give him some kind of satisfaction. Now, that is the point. The point is, he created this world to undergo the experience of achievement or manifestation. Everything was present inside him already. But when he manifested the world, the experience that he undergoes when he manifests the world is not the same as when he contains everything inside him. In other words, take for instance a more earthy example. मैं कितना भी आप लोगों को डिस्क्राइब कर दूं ताजमहल के बारे में, its actual seeing is not substituted by a description. However much I may describe to you the taste of ice cream, the experience of eating ice cream, it will never replace the actual experience of eating it. The description is no substitute for the actuality. This is the simple point. So, in other words, it may seem paradoxical that the perfect also needed to undergo a certain kind of experience, and that is the experience of actualizing its potential. This is the point. Take for instance, in the West, it is more common, it's less common in India. You come across examples where the son of a billionaire tells his father, I don't want your money. You just give me a seed capital, a little amount, and I'll do my own business. Why? Why does he? And he may flourish, he may not flourish. But why does he say it? Because he wants to test himself. See, it's a challenge that he wants to give himself in the sense that merely inheriting his father's wealth will not give him that sense of achievement as rivaling his father independently. So it is basically that sense of achievement which the supreme being also needed to undergo. And it's a tricky concept. But I'll tell you, Shri Aurobindo, in one of, see, generally people only are familiar with his Savitri poem because it's the most famous. But there are other poems also which are very great, but they sort of get overshadowed because of Savitri. Savitri is like the great banyan tree, and they say nothing grows under the banyan tree. Itself it is very big, but उसके नीचे और कुछ नहीं पनप सकता. Savitri's effect is a bit like that. See this line. It's a couplet from his other poem, Ahana. Earth souls, earth souls needing the touch of heaven's peace to recapture. In other words, in English there is a word frenetic. Frenetic means feverish. We lead feverish lives, full of anxieties, worries, disappointment, all sorts of things, unfortunate events, etc. So, as human beings, our first need is to regain that peace of heaven, which we have lost by coming into this world. We lead feverish lives, earth souls needing the touch of heaven's peace to recapture. We need heaven's touch to recapture the peace of heaven so that life becomes less stressful, more stress free, calm, peaceful, and happy. So, we as human beings on earth are deficient in peace and we need to recover it. Heaven also is deficient. This is the point. कोई पूर्ण मदर में भी कुछ कमी है. Heaven, heaven needing earth's touch to quiver its peace into rapture. What is the meaning of the word quiver? Shiver. In other words, quiver is to send a current of thrill or joy. So, there is a difference between peace and rapture. In peace, there is no intensity. In rapture, there is intensity of ananda. In other words, peace converts into rapture only when there is some achievement. Otherwise, you are just peaceful, you are happy. इकबाल का शेर है, आती थी कोह से ये सदा, राज़े हयात है सकूत. कहता है पहाड़ की चोटी से ये मैसेज आया मुझे कि the secret of life is peace and stability, like the mountain. Mountain is in one place, it is peaceful and stable. आती को means पर्वत की चोटी. आती थी कोस से ये सदा, सदा is आवाज. आती थी कोस से ये सदा, राज़े हयात है सकूत. लाइफ का सीक्रेट इज पीस एंड स्टेबिलिटी. कहता था मोरे नाते वहां लुत्फ खराम और है. पर एक छोटी सी चींटी ने भी अपना एक मैसेज दिया. वो ये था कि एक मजा आगे बढ़ने का है जो तुझे नसीब नहीं है. यू डू नॉट हैव द जॉय ऑफ प्रोग्रेस. आती थी कोह से ये सदा, राज़े हयात है सकूत. And this he has written at the age of 24. आती थी कोस से ये सदा, राज़े हयात है सकून. हयात इज लाइफ. लाइफ का सीक्रेट इज स्टेबिलिटी एंड पीस. कहता था मोरे नाते वहां. एक हेल्पलेस छोटी सी चींटी भी कुछ कहती थी. वो ये थी लुत्फ खराम और है कि एक आगे बढ़ने का भी मजा है जो तुझे नसीब नहीं थी. कहता था कुतुब आसमां काफिलाए हजूम से हम नहीं, ये कहता था कुतुब आसमां काफिलाए हजूम से हम रहो मैं तरस गया लुत्फ कराम के लिए. कहता था वो जो पोल स्टार है, पोल्स उसकी क्या खासियत है? इट इज फिक्स्ड. तो कहता था वो जो पोल स्टार है इट इज फिक्स्ड इन वन प्लेस, इट डजंट शिफ्ट. कहता था कुतुब आसमां काफिलाए हजूम से. सितारों का जो कैरावान जा रहा था उससे वो एक स्टार ने कहा हम रहो मैं तरस गया. ओ माय फेलो ट्रैवलर्स, मैं तरस रहा हूँ लुत्फ खराम के लिए, आगे बढ़ने के लिए. वो मुझे नसीब नहीं, मैं एक ही जगह फिक्स्ड. हाँ, सो कहता था इकबाल में ये चीज बहुत है. कहता था कुतुब आसमां काफिलाए हजूम से. हजूम कहते हैं झुंड सितारों का. काफिलाए हजूम से हम रहो ओ माई मेरे साथियों, मैं तरस गया लुत्फ खराम के लिए. सैर करने के मजे के लिए मैं तरस गया, वो मुझे नहीं. I am condemned to remain in the same place. I am like that legend in Greek mythology of Prometheus. I am chained to my rock. I cannot leave that. So in other words, the Supreme also needed to undergo the experience of achieving. See, when a painter or an artist or a sculptor or a musician, when he successfully creates what he wants to create, does he do it only for money or fame? He does it for his internal satisfaction. That what he has put on canvas should be exactly the same as what he had in his mind. So, and if you, I have given that example many times. There used to be a serial on Sundays, uh, Khana Khazana, by that cook Sanjeev Kapoor. तो उसमें जब वो पहले वो बताता है कि कोई डिश कैसे बनानी, फिर वो बन के फिर वो सजा के फिर वो लास्ट में क्या करता है, he tastes it and then with joy he rolls his eyes and says it is perfectly done and बड़ा मजा आया and all. That is the thing. What does he experience there? The joy of successful achievement. It was a challenge which he has achieved. So, so the Vedantic, in a mature way, the concept of the Vedanta is that the Supreme Being brought this world out of himself as an artist to experience the joy of perfect success in execution, in accepting a challenge. I mean, there are other examples also. He would be remembering. The example is there was a very steep mountain. एक पहाड़ी थी बड़ी very high and very steep, and ascending onto it on top of it was tough. But one brave chap, he climbed up right on top and he reached. When he reached, he came down after successfully reaching, but in the process, he underwent lot of physical harm. He got snow blindness. वो जब बर्फ के ऊपर सी नीचे ग्राउंड लेवल पे जो एटमॉस्फेयर होता है वो ठीक होता है, तो उससे वो सूरज की जो रोशनी है वो स्प्रेड आउट हो जाती है। हाइट पे जब वो बर्फ पे चमक जाके पड़ती है तो वो शीशे की तरह सीधी आंखों में जाती है और वो एटमॉस्फेयर उसको absorb नहीं करता, so it leads to snow blindness. That is why they wear those dark goggles. Pardon? Thin, that's it. So then they get that frost bite. The toes fall off, the fingers fall off. So after he successfully climbed the peak, he came down and he was addressing a press conference. So one of the members, correspondents, said that before you set out, did you not know that all this can happen? Snow blindness. When he said, "See, my fingers have dropped off, my toes have dropped off, I am temporarily blind or whatever." So they asked him, "क्या तुम्हें ये सब मालूम नहीं था?" He said, "मालूम था." He said, "Then why did you go?" Then through the conference room, through the window, he pointed at the mountain and he said, because it was there, means that mountain was throwing me a challenge. And I wanted to experience the joy of वो चुनौती लेके और उसको काबू करने का मुझे जॉय चाहिए. So in a way, these are examples to highlight that potentially the Supreme is perfect, but there is always a difference between potential unity and expressed unity. एक गेंदे का फूल है, वो जब बंद है, it is one, it is united. but all the petals are locked. When it blossoms, also it is one. But in the second case, the unity is an expressed unity. That unity has been expressed. In the first case, the unity is inexpressed. So this is the concept of Leela. And I mean, I have explained it in more philosophical terms, not just that Lord Krishna is playing with those gopis and all. This is more than that. Now comes Shri Aurobindo. If supposing he will bear repetition, supposing it is a wintry morning, but there is bright sunshine at the same time, and on a lawn you let loose a puppy with a ball of wool, what will it do? It will roll, it will entangle itself, disentangle itself, right? It will go on romping. कभी उलझेगा फिर निकलेगा फिर उलझ जाएगा रोल लोट पोट होता रहेगा. That puppy is enjoying himself, but that activity is purposeless. It's mechanical, it will go on repeating because there is no goal behind that rolling load port होने के पीछे कोई उद्देश्य नहीं है. But the actual Leela is more complicated. See, it is one thing for a puppy to romp on a wintry morning in the sun on the lawn with a ball of wool. Take for instance these ODI and these cricket matches or soccer matches. In soccer matches, what happens? The players they kick the ball, but do they do it randomly? No. It's not that they just aimlessly go on kicking the ball. They do it with a purpose. So they are enjoying it, but it's a purposeful activity. So Shri Aurobindo synthesizes this concept of evolution with the Vedantic concept of Leela. The concept of evolution is largely a Western concept, largely Darwin's concept of evolution and advancing of the species and all. So what Shri Aurobindo says is that the Leela in the actual Leela is the supreme being, first of all, making his consciousness less and less, and then experiencing the joy of manifesting more and more consciousness till he is able to express full consciousness. So, in Shri Aurobindo's concept, man is an intermediate stage. He is not the final evolution, product of evolution. The point is, see, Shri Aurobindo's view is that if you look back at the history of the creation, universe, there are three main facts. Three main facts. The first is coming into existence of matter. If you read this cosmology now, Big Bang, and वो Big Bang में क्या हुआ? Energy exploded, and then quantities of energy started coagulating. Or sort of they started forming lumps, and then there were atoms and protons and neutrons and electrons and all these. So that is the first creation of matter. Then matter became molecule, molecule became compound, more and more complex matter, and now you have the periodic table with about 108 elements with different structures and all. So the first major step in history of the cosmos is the coming into existence of matter. And it took billions and billions of years for those particles to form and then to combine in different ways till you had compounds. For instance, carbon wood is a compound. Many different elements have come together. So that take for instance even water. Water is a combination of two elements, hydrogen and oxygen. So, and then water when mixed with sugar or water with mixed with something else forms wood. I mean, these are complex, greater and greater complexity of matter is the first major step of evolution. Then comes the next major step, the coming into existence of life. That became possible when matter attained a certain degree of complexity. It became a suitable, you can say, basis or foundation for the coming in or supporting the element of life. So, if you compare matter with life, what is the fundamental difference? In life, there is greater uh, consciousness. A living creature is more conscious a than pure inert matter. That's obvious. Now the same thing starts again with life. So you have greater and greater complexity from the unicellular creature and amoeba, more and more and more and more and more, till you have very complex mammals like dolphins and horses and dogs, very intelligent, high IQ, and then finally man. Now in man, with man another major step takes place, the coming into existence of reason. See, all said and done, animals, whatever their degree of complexity, they are not governed by reason, by rational thinking. The process of life is mechanical. I mean, all these animals, they live by their instinct, not by their reason. And so, with the coming of man, you have another element, reason. And today, everything is before you. By the application of reason, what all has man not achieved? I mean, just see the technology and all. You just pick up a mobile, press a few buttons, and talk to anyone in any corner of the world. इससे बड़ी achievement क्या हो सकती है टेक्नोलॉजी की? And it's fantastic. So this is the basic. So with man, with the coming of reason, a new dimension takes place. Now what? This is the crucial point. Now what Shri Aurobindo says is that even with though the difference between man and an animal is vast, it's very big, but still, even man, the process of evolution is not complete. Why? Because all said and done, man's consciousness is a twilight. It's a gray area. It is not man's consciousness doesn't possess complete knowledge. So that is why we move towards the truth by stumbling. From one thing we come to some conclusion, test it. If it is correct, then we move further. If it is not correct, then we withdraw our steps. So this process of trial and error is the way that man uses his reason to progress. In other words, even with man, the expression of consciousness is not complete. Man is an incomplete product of evolution. It's not perfect. Now comes the crucial part. With after man, evolution will not stop. Because the purpose of evolution is to manifest more and more and more consciousness till consciousness is able to be manifest totally. Complete revelation of consciousness is the goal of evolution. So it has gone by step. With matter, no consciousness. With life, semi consciousness but mechanical. And then with mind, greater consciousness, capable of reasoning, capable of analyzing, logic, compare, etc. And now the next step will be a complete manifestation of consciousness. But there is a huge but. That but is next step of evolution will not be mechanical in the sense that take for instance whether a dog or a dolphin or any highly evolved mammal, it did not become a dolphin or a dog or anything by conscious effort. मैकेनिकली वो एवोल्यूशन का जो भी प्रोसेस था वो चलता रहा एंड उसके चलने के दौरान दिस these things were thrown up. They were these, you can say, offshoots of that process. But no dog or animal or a crow or anything for that matter consciously wanted to outgrow its limitations. So this, what Shri Aurobindo points out is the major difference between man and animal is man can become conscious of his limitations and he can aspire to outgrow his limitations to become self transcendent, to go beyond himself. He can realize that he is limited and that he has the urge to transcend those limitations. And now, this is the point, it is only man because of his faculty of reason, he can understand the process of evolution. A dog does not know that it has been produced by evolution. It has just been produced and he is happy to be a product of evolution. But he is not bothered to understand how he came to be man. That was by the process of evolution. In other words, man can understand the process of evolution. He can become conscious of the fact that there is evolution. Now comes the next crucial point. Once he comes to know that he is the process, he is the outcome of a process, he can understand the process also. And when he understands the process, he will also understand that it has a direction. It is that process is moving in a certain direction. And now comes the last difference. In other words, Shri Aurobindo believed that further evolution will take place by man's conscious cooperation. This phrase is very important. Man will understand evolution and he will consciously help it to advance. And if you read his letters, this is what this is the justification that Shri Aurobindo gave for starting his ashram also. He said in a letter that I am not like other yogis or swamis out to capture market share of devotees. Some have gone to Shivanand, some have gone to Ramakrishna. So maybe I also am not out in the market to capture market share of the thing. The aim is to help that process of evolution. And that for that is why yoga was necessary and that is why the ashram was founded. So the rationale, the justification of the ashram was that if if and then he says that he gives his analysis that a human being outwardly appears to be one entity, but actually many persons are lodged inside one person, and he gives them different names like the inconscient, the subconscient, the subtle physical, subtle vital, etc. These are different planes of consciousness, and all of these planes are present inside us. So, what he says is that evolution can now move forward when, by calling down consciously by yoga a higher power, which he calls the supermind. The supermind will come down and it will act like a high pressure pneumatic drill. It will dig holes into that inconscient which is otherwise very resistant. The when you come across a rock which is very hard, then the drill breaks. So it is only the drill of the supermind that can successfully penetrate the hard bedrock of the inconscient. Until that is not broken or cracked, all other religions and spiritual movements will fail. And this is his analysis. Why all other past religions they have inspired mankind, but they have not brought about a major dent. That dent is because they did not see if you have a garden where you have poisonous weeds, you go on cutting the weeds, but they'll go on growing. So what needs to be done is to root them out. So that rooting out process is only possible with the supramental force and light. So this is why he also this is the justification for his going into seclusion. He said that I alone I will do tapasya and bring down that supramental light into myself and into the mother. Two of us will embody that light, that force. But it will be like two monolithic structures. If that light is descends only into monoliths, it will be it will not have a solid foundation. So the ashram he founded was to give that structure a broad base. See, a pillar, if it is just standing like this, is not as stable as a pillar which has a huge broad base. So that broad base would be the ashram. That people who are inspired by this vision, by this ideal, they can come and join the ashram, and under the guidance of the mother and Shri Aurobindo, they can practice yoga and prepare themselves for receiving that light when it first descends through them. In other words, they will act like funnels. You know वो funnel होता है कितना चौड़ा मुंह होता है और फिर so they will be like funnels through whom the supramental light will percolate into the earth atmosphere, and it will be broad based. Otherwise, it will be a very unstable structure. So, it was for that broad basing that he founded the ashram, and himself he went into seclusion. Unfortunately, he could not bring down that supramental light on uh, and he left the body. I've been requested to speak on 24th April and the significance of 24th April. It is related to this, all this that I'm saying. And I'll elaborate that part on 24th April. So that after that broad basic, he left the body. Then mother said that the reason why he left the body was, after all, the body also was gross matter. So it was acting like a drag on that tapasya. Now that that drag is over, he is directly acting on the supermind and busy bringing it down. And finally, the mother announced that it will come down. It came down in on 29th of February 1956. It is celebrated by followers of the ashram as the day of the supramental descent. It descended and now it is working in the atmosphere And of course, this is a matter of debate. People, those who are believers, they link many developments to the descent of the supermind. Those who are not such ardent devotees, they have reservations and all. But I have explained to you the concept of Leela in traditional Vedanta and in Sri Aurobindo. So, achievement, and mind you, what Shri Aurobindo said was कि ये जो सुप्रामेंटल डिसेंट किया है और करेगा, इसकी पराकाष्ठा एंड रिजल्ट क्या होगी? दैट विल बी द ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन ऑफ इवन द फिजिकल बॉडी. और उनकी एक लाइन है, एंड द फ्लैश विद a गॉड ग्लोरी टिंगल. Even the flesh will tingle with a God glory. And for your general information, I am telling you, there have been examples of people who tried physical transformation and achieved part success. In South India, there is the story of Swami, not story, it's a recorded biography of a yogi. His name was Swami Ram Lingam. Swami Ram Lingam, by his tapasya, had brought down a higher consciousness in himself, and his body used to glow. उसमें से वो एक रेडिएशन लाइट निकलती थी. बट दैट लाइट वाज लाइक दिस. वो एमआरआई वगैरह में वो इज हार्मफुल ऑल्सो. So it was of a very high intensity, and anyone who would see it or who would come in contact with it might suffer like this nuclear radiation. वो तुम्हारे अंदर वो गड़बड़ कर देता है. Similarly, so he used to cover himself with bandages so that people around him are protected from that radiation. And he died also very mysteriously. His sort of body just evaporated or disappeared. They didn't find his dead body. So Swami Ramlingam made that attempt, and he achieved partial success also. Yoganandi, normally the physical body starts decomposing within 48 hours, but he remained intact. And for that matter, even Shri Aurobindo left his body on the 5th of December at 11:27 in the at night, on the night of 11 December 5. And Pondi's climate, if you know, is that damp climate where, I mean, easily things catch rust. I have lived there. वो साइकिल के जो स्पोक्स होते हैं वो रस्ट से लाल हो जाते हैं. उनको रेगुलरली तेल से अगर साफ ना करो, दे बिकम एब्सोल्युटली रेड with rust. So, I mean, so the process of decomposition is faster in these coastal areas than in inland. But his body, without any ice, without any fans or anything, it remained intact for over 100 hours. On the fifth day, he was given samadhi, and you see, it is illegal to keep the body indefinitely after it is dead. So you have to take permission. So they called the official medical officer of Pondicherry government, and he came and examined, and he said every tissue is living. It is only when in one corner of the body one or two blue spots appeared that mother said now put him in samadhi. But even after so many hours, it was not that it had completely turned blue or anything. So this is yoga, and I mean the achievements of yoga. But Ramlingam's actually वो जो श्री अरविंद ने कहा ना, and the flesh with a God glory tingle, tingling sensation is vibrating. that he achieved in his body. So we have concluded for today.